Testing, 1, 2, 3. Something.
Yep. Seems like that. Yep.
Should I remove this one or do I have to do that one or both?
That one. Let's just see if that's up or not. Takes a while.
It's unmuted.
Let's turn it off.
Which is okay, right?
Well, I'll find out if it's worth coming early to one of these meetings.
Let me try to do this one.
Oh, maybe I'll go somewhere else.
We are.
state, that doesn't
There.
happen.
No, we sang,
Go.
one piece that was religious, she was in Latin.
Yeah.
So it was literally.
Well, you know, it's
literally
really funny because Kira was singing at home, like, when I'm gone, and I'm like, what are you singing? And she doesn't know she's singing. And I thought, okay, wow, that's cool. But I didn't know where it was, and now then I figured it out, and I got, like, oh, that's what she's singing.
Because it's, yeah, the American African American.
Yeah. It was, she had the best times, and I was crying, a hot mess.
That's exactly what we want.
Yeah.
You know,
These two, they didn't go. Erin was sitting on one side. Erin's mom was so sweet because her mom was closer to me. She kept looking over. She's doing a great job, dear. It was so cute, your mom, because I don't know if your mom thought I don't know why she thought I was crying, but your mom kept saying, she's doing a great job, dear. You should be so proud, dear.
Because you were crying.
I know, 'cause I was
She didn't think you were crying. You were crying. I love you dearly.
I couldn't help that. And she put her hands like this and she was singing. I'm like, okay, I'm just losing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was when I lost it.
No, I always tell the kids, you know, if you can make the parents cry, you did your job.
Yeah.
Because you want that emotion.
How are you? So we sang about the concert Wednesday night.
Alright.
How are you? Did Mom cry to any of those? There's
So
like
she's,
thousands.
I know, we are getting her on, we told her she needs to get her resident, I don't know
Yeah.
if she did, I passed them along.
Okay, well, if you want me to help, I work on it. I can.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that
Yeah.
they did insurance.
No, I didn't either. That was fabulous, thank
Yeah.
you, thank you.
So we need to find that.
Hey, Trish. But then,
Alright. Yeah. Alright, call to order this regular session meeting of the Park City School Board on March 15th at 3:30 p.m. Pledge allegiance. Wendy, would you like to lead?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. So, straight to close. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn to close session for the purpose of discussing a strategy session to discuss purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation, and to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health or an individual.
I make a motion to move to close a regular session and move to closed session.
Perfect.
Second.
Anne?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Oh, we'll see you soon.
Back.
I'm gonna go through here. Can you pull up please?
Because he said it's easier.
It probably doesn't really matter. That's why
I have to leave. I just need to leave my phone.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna go, like, I'll do consent agenda and then I'll have you come up and then I'll switch over. Whoa, sorry. I'll wait till Wendy gets here, but, I'm gonna do consent agenda and then, Mrs. Morgan needs to go and then
Let's get to.
start. Okay, all right. We're gonna move to our consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve consent agenda, which includes regular session minutes of February 15th, closed session minutes of February 15th, accounts payable registers of February 11th, 23rd, 25th, March 1st, 2nd, 7th, 8th, personnel information, February expenses and revenues, HMS, land trust revisions, PCHS, TSS revisions, travel requests, contracts, building official appointments.
I make a motion to approve consent agenda as read.
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
No.
No. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Ms. Morgan, we'll have you come on up and join us.
Thank you, appreciate that. I have to go to a choir concert tonight, so I
Awesome.
would really like to make it. All right, good evening. Thank you so much for the time flexibility for teachers recently. The March 11th workday was well received and very appreciated, as is the no meeting week this week. The Coalition for Safe and Inclusive Schools Task Force is underway, and we appreciate the opportunity to work together to address things such as diversity, policy, professional learning, culture, climate engagement, incident management and reporting, and curriculum and resources. This is a positive step that allows for dialogue and solutions. As the district moves forward in the process of hiring a CAO to replace Dr. Hunt, who is leaving us at the end of the school year, discussions have begun to include an equity component to the job description. PCA supports this and would like to see a Director of Diversity role. We would support an equity director in any capacity, either as a standalone position or as one of the major roles of the new CAO. PCA would like to make it clear that we were not involved in the wording, creation, or implementation of the PCSD stakeholder survey sent to teachers on February 14th in any capacity. We also have confirmation from UEA leadership and USBE that they were also not involved in the creation of this survey. PCA promotes open, honest, and positive conversations with the district and the board and has a good working relationship because of that. For too long, there has been a divide among us, teachers, board, district office, parents. The only way to bridge that divide is to come together in an open and honest way to work together. All of us have the same goal, to educate children. It is vital to teach this next generation how to work through difficult issues and disagreements in a positive way, face to face, without blame or constantly pointing out faults. Are there many issues we need to work on together? Absolutely. PCA values the collaborative work we have been able to accomplish with both the board and the district office so far, and we look forward to continued productive discussions in the future. Thank you.
For the concert.
Yes.
Thank you.
Claustina, I also know, do you want to come up and have your report now, and then I can get you also out of here? Thank you.
Thank you, President Brady, appreciate it. Will I be able to?
Plug in, absolutely. Sorry, I should have said that.
Oh, is it too
It's,
late?
yeah, it's on there.
What am I saying?
Thank you. Thank you to the board and superintendent for allowing me to present this evening. Sorry for moving ones away. Okay, so I just wanted to give a report on our equity task force, our coalition. It has been reignited, and this is just a quick report on what we're doing right now and what next steps are. So, as we begin, let's just take it back really quickly to our vision and mission for our school district, right? Our mission is to inspire and support all students equitably. And our vision goes along with looking at the whole child and making sure that we are student-centered. In an attempt to be able to do that, we're looking at our big picture, right? Every student and staff member experiences safety and belonging within our school district, whether it be our district itself or our school buildings. And we want to make sure that everyone is safe, not just our students, but also our professional staff. So here is just, this was sourced out from Davis School District. I do some work with Davis. We're very familiar with Davis, and we say that all of our districts, 41 public school districts in the state of Utah are Davis, right? We all speed at some point or another. Davis sped, got caught, but we all have issues within our school district that fall under racialized incidences of bias. What I'd like you to draw your attention to is the top of each one of the columns where the bold is, the bolded font. So what we attempt to do is look at problems, see the impact of the problems, see what the root causes of the problems, come up with solutions, so we're solution-based, and look at the future state of our district. What's written within the boxes is not necessarily, we have not worked on that. That's something that I just did, right? But just to kind of show the example of taking each problem, chipping away at it, so we know that we're solution-based, we look at root causes, and we're looking at the future state of our district to align with our mission and our vision. Some of our tactics and strategies will fall in line with, obviously, the coalition that we've reignited. Looking at policy, looking at professional learning, what does it mean for our staff, for our students to be able to experience what anti-bias is? Looking at our culture and climate, how we gather data, our student engagement, our accountability, and transparency. And this right here is an effort for us to be transparent. Our tips and tactics, if you could draw your attention to the third bullet on the right-hand side bottom, this report out. So this is part of what we're doing, reporting out monthly, so you are kept abreast of everything that we're doing within our district. Okay, so what does this look like for us? We know the urgency to act is now. And so it began with the relaunching and rebranding of our task force. Reviewing existing district and school-based policies and procedures, because we want to identify gaps in how we function every day, what our systems look like. And then we want to provide guidance around our Utah State Board of Ed ruling, which is 277328, and I will go into that ruling just a little bit in depth, just so everyone has a background, some context. So the history of our task force. We started in 2019. Dr. Gilday had appointed me to facilitate our task force, and so that started, it was an administrator meeting about June of 2019. What we did is we had monthly meetings. We got into some inclusive practices for our schools. What does that look like? We also engaged in equity walks within all of our schools. And then we got into the pandemic, and some of those equity walks were virtual. And then we went into 2020, 2021, Zoom, and we continued. And then, as you know, I had an accident, some of our work, not to say that our work stopped, but we didn't have our task force meetings at the time. So as we look forward to reigniting and rebranding our task force, we're looking at calling for members. So we just had a meeting last Wednesday, and in that meeting, the current members were charged with actually bringing 2 to 3 community members back to the table. And we will meet again, not this week, thanks to the board, we have no meeting week, but we will meet again next week. We will reconvene on the 23rd of March. And so when we reconvene, the expectation is that our members, our current members, have other community people that they will bring into the fold, into our space. And then we will look to do some actionable items. We're going to determine some strategies to connect district policies and school-based processes. So we're able to report out, right, that we actually have a system that we're reporting out in. We do have systems to report behaviors, but we haven't looked at them from a racialized lens. So that's one of the things we're going to be doing. And then providing professional development around our educational equity ruling 277-328. So basically, in a nutshell, ruling 277-328, which passed this last summer, deals with two things. It deals with professional development for adults in our buildings, right? And how we do that under a DEI lens. So when we're looking at diversity, equity, inclusion, what type of professional development can we give our teachers? And then the second piece to that ruling is, how do we instruct students under a diversity, equity, and inclusive lens? What does that curriculum look like, right? We know that it has to be tied to our standards. We know that we should be using Portrait of a Graduate, and we know that we should be using competency-based learning, which is also part of Utah State Board of Ed's kind of their coalition of how they want to see our school districts moving forward in the future. So this ruling kind of stopped all the districts in our state in the fall, because no one knew what we could do. No one knew how can we train teachers, what kind of professional development can we give them in terms of equity, diversity, inclusion. What does that look like? What can we say to students in classrooms? What can we not say? So that stopped all of us in our tracks, and now we're getting guidance, and that link right there underneath Roman numeral number 2 in the white font gives us from Dr. Patty Norman of the State Board of Ed. She has given out like just some PowerPoints just to kind of help us with our first module. So then the third Roman numeral is our cultural competency, right? How do we engage in inclusive classroom practices? When we look at a lot of our teachers, when we have incidents that we have experienced, we don't know how to deal with them, right? Do we acknowledge, do we not acknowledge, and why is that? Well, we haven't been socialized to talk about race. We haven't been socialized to talk about bias. So when these things come up, we kind of want to say, oh, I don't know what to do. What should I do? What should I say? How should I say it, right? And so as we move along, we really need to first be aware, right? Be aware of what's happening in our district, and then we can move forward and say, okay, now we can do something. Because we really want to be proactive and not reactive. That's really our goal. Okay, when we review our existing district and school-based policies, this is super fun. Wendy, the vice president, she knows. This was super fun for us to kind of look into, right? Because you look at different policies, you look at how they're named, right? And then you go into the policy. But now we're going to have a platform to be able to actually go in and look at what the policies are and where the gaps are, right? Where are there holes? Are there other things that we can add to these policies to make these robust policies that really support our mission and our vision? And then underneath, we have current practices. Like, we have things in place. We have our Utah State standards. We have our Portrait of a Graduate. In our own district specifically, we have our ECRIS data dashboard, so a place where we can house data. We have Power School, our student information system, so we can house things there. And then we also have branch lines. So we have things. It's not like we don't have anything. We have things. It's just a matter of how we're going to utilize what we have to address, right, what's happening in our district now. Okay. And then a quick summary as we're looking around this framework, around this coalition, right? We want to be able to have professional growth for our teachers, for all of our staff, awareness around equity outcomes, racial awareness, anti-Semitic awareness, anti-racist strategies, anti-bias strategies. Let me just go back to the bullet before the last. When we're talking about anti-racist strategies, I want to be very clear. I, Dr. Faustina Mahan-Reynolds, I am not calling anybody a racist. When we talk about anti-racist strategies, we're talking about behaviors. Behaviors of things that are happening. How do we change that behavior? So I just want to be clear. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. But we want to be able to engage. Our ultimate goal is to engage in courageous, systemic change, dialogue, practices, right? That will help us and guide us to have a district that is inclusive, like all inclusive, right? Belonging for all students. I sit before you and I tell you I have two jobs. My number one job at Treasure is to keep kids safe, and my second job is to make sure they're learning. If we are not safe, we're not learning. We can't learn, right? Even as adults, that holds true. Okay, and so to finish out, we have a scope to the work that we're going to do, right? And so we have several objectives that our coalition is working on, that they've been tasked with. And so in objective 1, we're looking at providing strategies, strategic leadership, and organizational support, right? How are we going to ground this within our district? What are the foundational structures that we're going to use? In objective 2, addressing racism and harassment policies and procedure. What are our current policies and procedures? What do we need to add to make sure we are addressing any and all incidents that are happening? Now, are we going to get it right the first time? No, it's a working, living document. We'll continue to address it and improve it as we move on. Objective 3, implement reporting and case management. So that's important because we need to know where to house these incidents. If these incidents are happening, we want to know what is the frequency? Where are they happening? Is there a specific level? Is it happening at the primary level? Is it happening at the secondary level? We want to know, is it happening at a specific grade level? Is it associated with a particular social studies standards? Right? We don't know, so we want to be able to dive in and have a report management system. In objective 4, we want to deliver system-wide equity training and coaching. We have the word training there, but it's more, when we think of training, we think of, okay, one and done. But we're all lifelong learners, so we want to continue. We want to have a continuum of professional learning opportunities. So we're always learning different things. We're learning new things. We're learning about identities, how our students identify, how our staff identify, so we can make an inclusive environment. And then our last objective is culture, climate, and community student engagement. It's super important. As a district, we are in the K-12 realm, and a lot of times we are making decisions for kids, and kids aren't at the table. So it's important to have that student agency, that student voice. We want students to be engaged in the decision-making process that we have. And it goes without saying, of course we want our community involved, of course we want our school district personnel involved, but we also need to have our students involved. And then as we go through these objectives, we're looking for outcomes for students and the community, because we are PCSD strong. And as I finish up, so what we're currently doing is we've had a call for members to relaunch our task force. Okay, we're defining commitments, subcommittee work, and expectations, and that's ongoing. That's what we're going to continue to do when we meet next week, week after, and so on. We're scheduling task force meetings. We do have one scheduled for next Wednesday, and then the Wednesday afterward, 3:30 to 5. And then we're forming subcommittees, and those subcommittees will be based on those objectives. So those objective groups are pretty much our subcommittees for the coalition. And then last, our immediate steps, again, call for members, casting the net far and wide, reconvening multiple meetings to form the coalition, create the subcommittees based on the objectives that you saw, a couple of slides up, have a communication plan template to communicate each subcommittee goal, objectives, and strategies, and underneath in the white font for number 5, that I actually linked the template that I worked on with Caitlin O'Connor in our equity in our meeting last week. And then in every single one of our committees will have worked on a template. So they will continue to have running documentation of what they're working on and what it looks like. And then I will be writing a PCF grant to assist with funding for our coalition. So it will give us a little bit of funding, but of course there needs to be conversation of what type of budget we will have moving forward in terms of staffing, professional learning opportunities, how we're reviewing our curriculum. Those are really important steps that we need to take. And then future steps, we have study groups, book study, and that's in conjunction with up above. And then board policy review, professional development and learning, creating some systemic structures that we have. And the structures that we do have in place, again, making them more robust, right? To make sure that we're being proactive and not reactive. And then the last, number 6, budget implication for staffing, training, curriculum review. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Try to get through quickly. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
I know you.
When are you guys convening again? Is it next week?
So yes, the next one is next Wednesday, 3:30 to 5. We've been doing Zoom, but I think there's been talk Dr. Goulet about us doing an in-person next time.
Yeah, because the number 6, the budget implications, we're getting close. So if you can spend some time in the next meeting looking at that and what, she left it. Mary Morgan, she mentioned that the PCA would like us to look at equity as potentially part of the new CAO role, or as a separate role, but that I think we need to flush that out as soon as possible, so we can address that in the coming weeks or months or whatever by May 17th. So we're getting tight, 2 months, I guess, for the budget. Just to reflect to the committee that the sooner we can get ideas, the better, because we have to make decisions quickly for next
year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
I can
Above
do
and
without
beyond.
you ladies. Can do it. So
No.
thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Doctor. All right, I'm actually going to skip you for a second because it's 5. I'm going to move us straight down to public comment. So I don't know if anybody has public comment. They're informed. The Board of Education wants to hear live input from community members at our meetings. In order to respect and preserve the time allotted, each person on the agenda and each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers representing the group will be limited to 5. If you wish to address the board, please read and complete the blue public forum sheet on the table and give it to Lori. Each speaker will be invited to the rostrum to speak in the order in which the form is received. Please state your name clearly for the record. The Board of Education expects that all public comments will be polite, respectful, and accurate. Please refrain from specifically identifying personnel. Personnel issues are not appropriate for public comment, therefore such comments will not be allowed. Perfect, so the one. So Sarah Altschuler.
Hi. My name is Sarah Altschuler. I'm a parent and a substitute teacher in the district. And so this is partly related to stuff that we haven't gotten to yet, and Mary's employee report. So Heidi Matthews, the president of the Utah Education Association, just recently stated that 93% of members are looking at leaving the teaching profession at the end of the year. And Todd, you were just on KUER recently and stated school boards will really have to look to what can be done to keep the teaching profession attractive, as well as to retain those teachers who are already excellent teachers in the workforce. And I just, Mary mentioned this, but I mean, there was a recent PCSD stakeholder survey, and I'd say the results make it clear that there's an unhealthy climate for educators and by extension for students. And so in relation to that, I just wanted to talk about a current situation at Parley's Park Elementary School. And so we have 3 specialists that are being pulled from their regular duties to cover a long-term sub-job for somebody who's out for 3 weeks. And so it's going to affect all of the students and all of the teachers in the building, students who are going to miss their specialist block, teachers that are going to miss their prep time. And I'm about this situation without talking about myself, so I'm sorry.
We can't.
Okay, then I will not talk about, then I won't talk about that.
So.
Okay, so additionally, so PCSD has, Parley's Park has 1 instructional aide for 500 students. Okay, so for reference, McPolin has 430 students and 7 instructional aides. I do know that somebody applied for that job and that has not been spoken to. So, I guess basically I just want to say that there are issues going on, and I hope that you guys are paying attention to what's going on, because there are people that want to help and that are not being allowed to help. And it doesn't have to be like this. Parley's doesn't have to be the dumpster fire of the district. I love Parley's, and I want to see it succeed. I just want to see, people. No?
Appreciate it. And I would say that I have 2 kids there. I would not call it a dumpster fire. So but I appreciate your view and bringing it to our attention. And we have faith in our HR and our admin team, and I know that they're working on filling all the spots. So thank you. Appreciate it.
So that was not our survey that we sent
No.
out, correct? Okay. That had nothing to do with purchasing.
No, that was the one that
No, that's the one Mary mentioned.
Yes.
It's the one that no one will admit who they wrote it.
Right.
It's the
That's
anonymous hit job one.
Right. So that was
Yeah.
not
No,
our survey.
I didn't have anything to do with the survey.
No,
No, that's
I
fine.
just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
All right. I don't think we have, Lori, we had no more public comment? No, thank you. Jumped around. I think we are back to Mr. Tanner.
Good evening.
It's our jump around meeting. Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Tanner.
How are you?
Let's see without a mask. In years.
Right, I know, it's strange, isn't it? It's kind of a funny story.
It's a pretty face.
My daughter's been taking online guitar lessons, and she didn't even know that her instructor had. Kind of crazy. So this is the board, the operations report for the 15th of March, 22. The COVID situation in the county is looking really good. The school, as of today, has no active confirmed cases within the district, which is awesome.
Wow.
The county, however, is still showing us in a moderate, the county is a moderate protective transmission level, which is, they're mirroring the CDC. We're hoping they come off that to the low soon. As soon as they do, we'll take our fences down as prudence allows and open things up as best we can. You may have been in the schools and saw that we finally removed the covers from all the drinking fountains. We're very excited about that. But we are keeping our Eccles Clinic testing site open 7:15 to 9:15, just because the community knows where it's at. It's a known entity. The county has asked us to extend that, and so we're going to keep that going for a while until things continue to settle down. We're cautiously optimistic. Buildings and grounds, hats off to the ops team. There's been some heavy weather this last month, and those guys, the snow removal and the transportation.
You
work.
jinxed yourself. In the
I
last
know, I
meeting.
did.
I'm just gonna say that right now.
I paid for it this month,
Yeah.
right? But they've done a great job of pulling it all together, so hats off to them. The FY23 capital budgeting process is complete, where we've identified all the projects that have come to us from the schools. We've prioritized those, and now we're just waiting on the final funding allocation to determine where the cutoff line on those projects is. We have put out an RFP for inspection services for our schools as kind of another layer of quality assurance over what is going on with our master facility plan process. So Todd's going to be coordinated at MFP. We've gotten a scope of work from our local representatives, and that should be out in the marketplace soon. The master facility plan progress continues in a timely and orderly fashion. We're on time, on budget so far, which is great. And Dave is with us here tonight from MOCA to give you an update in more detail on that. Transportation, in response to some of the market issues, wages, we've moved our sub-wages for transportation, no benefits, up to $25 an hour, hoping that will appeal to a wider group of people who may be able to just help us on a part-time kind of gig basis. No takers yet. Our buses are being equipped this month with UV and air filtration, similar to what we have in the buildings, so that's a nice add. And our transportation manual has been working all year, and that should be out soon. Child nutrition services, John has put in some great equipment enhancement requests for the FY23 capital budget, which will help with the board's direction towards more scratch meals and stuff prepared in-house. Supply chain issues are still prevalent, so mostly now John's saying the packaging, which is kind of weird. So the stuff that we're giving the food to the kids on is differing day to day depending on what's available. But John reports happily that the staff morale is very positive. They're having a good year despite some of the personnel challenges there. Human resources, you may have seen the Vail announcement recently, upping the minimum wage there to $20 an hour. Of course, that's going to pinch us in terms of the already thin pool of applicants that are available, so that's going to be a consideration we'll have to take a deeper look into. The number of subs needed for COVID absences has been decreasing along with the COVID numbers here in the district, but we still have 18 open positions for this academic year that we have not been able to fill, mostly drivers and instructional assistants, as you heard. 22 positions are really posted for next year, which are mostly teachers. Dr. Sorensen is going to participate in the Parks and Municipal Blue Ribbon Compensation Committee. And they're targeting the 75th percentile as their benchmark of wages in the area for where they want their people to be. Of course, our recruiting efforts continue. From a security perspective, we interviewed a security firm that will allow us to do enhanced notification over cell phones to people in the classroom, or allow somebody to just with their cell phone press an alert that we go out to whatever geofence entity we like. And also that we store our now updated manual, emergency manuals electronically on their phones too as an enhancement. So we're looking at that. You may remember Liberty Defense from a few years ago who offered to do a beta test here on site. They didn't have funding at the time, but now they do have funding and their product is getting launched. So they've offered to come into our district, hopefully this summer, and help us with security at our entrances at Treasure and High School. In a very discreet way of screening for weapons and things that come into the school. Nothing like a metal detector or anything like that, but something that's very effective yet discreet. So we're hoping to take a look at that, closer look. And our next security meeting is on the 20th of April from 10 till noon. We're hoping that the board might come to that. Of course, we're always going to grab some Chevron donuts for everybody who wants to come along. It's a really good meeting. So that's all I have tonight. Relatively short report.
Thanks.
Fantastic.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice to
Thank
see
you.
Superintendent.
Absolutely. So of those 22, 14 of those are retirees, longtime people in the district who have actually secured 30 or more years of service. So we are seeing, in our workforce, we are definitely not at the youngest end of the workforce. We have people throughout their career spans, but we do have about 20 to 30% of our workforce are towards that more experienced side. But lots of people to celebrate this spring, for sure, for all of their accomplishments and trying to fill that experience cycle is a challenge, trying to ramp people up quickly. As you all know, we are 2 calendar years and 3 academic cycles into the pandemic, and schools throughout the nation continue to grapple with a broad array of concerns, from the loss of instructional time to evolving pedagogical practices. Here in Park City, I am pleased to recognize the efforts of each of our secondary schools in developing and rolling out preventive programming, from a Hallways Heroes initiative at Eckerd Hill Middle School to advisory course lessons and administrator videos championing diversity and inclusion at Treasure Mountain Junior High School, as well as teacher-led lesson design at Park City High School, focusing this week on the fact that hate speech, negative or egregious words or symbols harm each and every one of us. Next week, the high school staff will continue its efforts by reinforcing that reporting incidents by way of the Safe Utah app is a very important step in positively establishing our culture, climate, and expectations revolving of this to really eradicate that negative activity. I do want to congratulate today our students who are competing this week as Sterling Scholars, as well as those who participated in states for the debate team. They did really well. I'd be remiss not to mention that Summer Marshall was recognized today by the Utah Computer Educators Group as its Innovative Teacher of the Year. There is, as always, much to celebrate across Park City School District, and it all comes down to our most valuable asset, our people. What we recognize is that creating learning environments where students feel safe and are excited to learn is a key factor for current and future success. For schools that are embracing technology, becoming more project-based, and implementing more collaboration, we are seeing both happier teachers and students. When we all focus on our students, when we are all supported, and we have the necessary tools to be successful, we're on the right track. Learning and collaboration are essential to progress in any field. Our mission is to transform learning and collaboration for the better. As education in the workplace continues to evolve, we will continue to strive for an equitable approach to education with access and opportunities and support of the whole child. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I do want to also let you know that Dr. Hunt did attach this month our mid-year progress report. So what that is it takes
all of the universally administered assessments. So the Acadians math, the reading, the iReady, and it takes that and analyzes each student's progress against their own trajectory to see if they are making above, at, or below their expected growth scores. And as a system, each of our student groups is achieving as expected, which is actually statistically really significant, especially with the pandemic impact. So we have some groups, of course, achieving greater than, as we've recognized in past months, but it's just great to see kind of that mid-year system report. So that is there for your eyes, and that'll be publicly available tomorrow as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, off to master facilities update. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good,
Well,
how are
Michael
you?
already stole the thunder. We're on time, we're on budget, so I don't know what else you want me to tell you. Yeah, it was fun. I do want to go over the priorities. We're moving forward with moving the 9th grade. The floor plans are coming along very well, and I think that's going to turn out very nice. Combined grades 6, 7, and 8 at Ecker Hill. Those two are also coming along, and I think you're going to be very pleased with Ecker Hill. The interior modifications that we're doing in the center of the school, where we're adding on the 2 pieces, is turning out very nice. As far as providing the additional pre-K classrooms, we've worked over that the last 2 weeks, and we have gone back in and modified those plans to where they're, again, on budget. And I think you're going to be very pleased with them. They're going to be the same building. One will go on Jeremy and one will go on McPoland. And then, of course, Parley's Park and Trailside will come along a little bit later, but we're focused on McPoland and Jeremy Ranch right now. The contractor is starting to look at number 4, which is to minimize disruption to the students. He's looking at how he's going to stage, where he's going to set up, and how he's going to begin the demolition. Of course, we're waiting for school to end for this year, and then we'll get started. But they're focused very heavily on trying to make sure that we minimize the disruption to the students. I think the efficiency aspects we're still working through a lot of those things with how is it going to work while it's under construction, and where are the students going to be, and how is that all going to go together. But I think we have worked really hard to keep costs at a minimum and to stay on budget. Construction durations are holding. They're really in very good shape. And then the incorporation of the green enhancements. We'll talk a little bit about that, but they are starting now to look at materials, and I think they had a meeting this morning where they reviewed some materials. And so both schools are looking at LEED certified materials and as well as green materials. Todd, if you go to the next one. So on Ecker Middle School, again, we are on budget. The FLCC is $29.2 million, and that's, we're there. On March 28th, the Ecker design development will be complete. Now that's a little different than what I told you last week. I talked with the architects and the contractors, and they wanted another week for both Eckers and Parley's, or Park City, to focus on design development. And that's good, because the better the drawings, the better the pricing will be. And so that's helpful. And it doesn't have any impact to the end date. They just needed a little bit more time in the design development stage. So that moved from the 21st to the 28th, and you'll also notice that it moved from the 28th to April 4th on the high school. April 25th, then, we will start to mobilize, and on June 4th, they will do a full mobilization with the idea of starting demo on June 20th for Ecker. So we're coming up on that very quickly. July 7th of 2022, 90% construction documents will be done, and then we will bid at the end of June for that and move forward with construction. Park City is in a very similar situation with the FLCC at $50 million, and that's moving forward on budget. And you can see when design development is going to be done and go through the same process and see that they'll be ready to go with construction in July. So both of those projects are doing well. Jeremy Ranch and McPullen, we did have a lot of, I think I mentioned last time, we had a lot of utilities in the locations where we were looking at placing them originally. And we looked at several options for how to relocate those. In most cases, we came back, I think it was McPullen, we came back to placing it in the same place. In Jeremy Ranch, we twisted it a little bit. Is that right? I got those
So they're
backwards.
still basically in the same place, but the shape has changed to accommodate utilities.
Right, it's in the same place, but we've shrunk down the impact on utilities, which allowed us to get back into budget, because the utility movement of all the sewer, water, and power was becoming a very expensive situation. And so they're moving forward, and they'll go into full mobilization after bidding in May, and they'll start construction in June, both of those. And they're moving forward. The other thing I wanted to reiterate is on the high school and on Ecker Hill, we're going to be hitting an EUI of 35, which is excellent. And as I mentioned last time on McPullen and Jeremy Ranch, we're going to design for an EUI of 43.4, but we will have an alternate, a bid alternate, that'll take us down to 26 if the bids come in and we can afford it. So everything's going along really well right now, and I can answer any questions if you have them, but I think we're in really good shape. Now, I will tell you there are supply chain issues, so I may come back at a later time and tell you it's not happening. But right now, I think the contractors are very confident. We're in a good period right now where they are checking the markets and they see where they're going, and they can look out 3 or 4 months in advance and kind of have a sense of where things are. So I think we're in good shape. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Glad
See
to
you
have
later.
All right, Todd, your favorite topic.
Which is my favorite topic.
No, know what to say. Okay, budget.
Budget, all right. So, just wanted to bring the calendar up into view here. So this is where we stand. March 4th was March 4th or 5th was the last day of the session. I think I got the wrong calendar up here. Get a new calendar
Are
going.
you looking at legislation right now or budget?
So I'm
This
looking
is
at
budget.
the budget calendar, but I've got the wrong year up there for end of session. So the session ended, I think, on March 5th, 2022. With that in place, we have now the major financing components in place, as well as other legislative issues that we'll have to deal with in the upcoming year. So just wanted to highlight that's there, and then we will go through the process of prioritizing all the different options and issues and things that have come forward. Those we'll have conversations with you along the way. In the end, it will turn into what's called the superintendent's tentative budget. So that's a statutory requirement where we actually take all of this information and put it into a proposal that's a balanced budget. So we try to present that to you, and then we have further conversations with you with regards to that budget on fine-tuning it and tweaking it and making it the final product that we want to have in June. Right now, the hearing is set for June 21st, so that's the June meeting. Which is good because on June 22nd is the day we have to certify rates. So we will be meeting 24 hours in advance of that deadline. Also, as we've talked before, we're projecting the third year of a 4-year compensation package, which has a tax increase built into it. So we will be going through a truth and taxation hearing. Right now, I've communicated with the county auditor to schedule that date. Right now, we're looking at the 17th. Looks like this is going to be a popular year for most taxing entities to raise some income. So there'll be some juggling of dates to make sure that we don't convene on the same day. But right now, kind of keep that on your calendar that August 17th will be the last day we can do it. Most likely we'll hold it at the board hearing on the 16th. And you've not adopted yet your calendar for next year, but that's our typical date would be August 16th. But no later than the 17th. So that's what's happening on the calendar and where things are going. Last time I talked about the current environment, but I had done it verbally, so I've got it here in writing for you. And so I just wanted to get it in front of you once again as a reminder. These are the environment that we're in. We're still looking at positive growth in property taxes. The legislature actually funded a 6% increase in the value of the WPU, so we were expecting 5 and got 6. So it's a better situation all around. We are looking at enrollment decline in this upcoming school year, so that's built into the budget as we put the numbers together. We do have ESSER funds. The ARP ESSER is funding of about $1.7 million that was available over 3 years. So we're stretching that money out over the 3 years so that we can support programming and make sure we have all the supports in place that we need for our students and maximizing those dollars that are coming from the federal government. We're still looking at reorganization and with opportunities of individuals leaving the district. We are taking second looks and third looks at those job descriptions and making sure that we have the right job description put together and we bring the right talent on board so that we're able to help the district move forward. So that's all in flux and will get cemented out as we work into the budget that we'll present to you. These are the priorities, or this is the lens, so to speak, that we used as we spoke with our building administrators and our directors in the district, saying this is how we will move forward with new dollars that become available to the school district. So looking at academic achievement, safety, school safety, safe environments, attracting and retaining outstanding educators and staff. So that's when someone brought a proposal together, we asked, and how will that help us advance in this area? To run with what the revenue picture looks like for right now. On state revenue, we have, again, that enrollment decline, so we will receive about $350,000 less in weighted pupil unit dollars. However, with the 6% increase in the WPU, we can expect 1.3 million to come in, so we're in a net million position of new dollars coming into the school district through the WPU. There was a separate piece of legislation that will bring in another almost $1 million on a one-time basis. And those dollars are designed for capital type needs within the district. So that comes at a very advantageous time as we start to look at how to finance the balance of our $50 million in capital projects. The district participates in 2 RDAs, so these are redevelopment agencies, or areas within Park City proper, so in the city. One of those concluded this last December, so this will be the freed up revenue that will now accrue to the school district instead of to the project area. So we're going to use every dollar we got. We have a lot of needs. We're going to grab everything we can. That's the estimate of 3%. Property tax is about 1.2 million. When we had forecasted year 3 of the property or of the compensation package, we knew we'd need about $800,000 in a property tax increase. So that's built in right now. And some of the proposals that are going forward will impact some of our fees and tuition. This is mostly out at like the aquatic center and things like that, where additional dollars are coming in through those activities. I also have written on here $3.5 million. That is the amount of money in the reserve that's above and beyond our 2 months of operating expense that we hold, or that we call the rainy day. So these are additional revenues that can be programmed if you choose as we move forward. So we're looking at about 3.1 million in ongoing dollars and about 4.5 million in one-time monies. Those are the resources now that we will bring together to help support the asks for the upcoming school year. As we look at the stream of money, I call this, we have 2 big rocks in the river as we look at the stream. The first is our 3rd-year commitment. This is about $2.1 million already committed to our employees, already something that we need to set at the highest priority in those funds. So out of the 3.1, 2.1 is already going to go here. So that leaves us about $1 million to talk about ongoing needs of the district. The other is the capital financing. We have 3 projects, Ecker, Parley's, and Treasure, that were not part of the general obligation bond. So those projects add up to about $49.8 million. We have in reserves $13.5 million, and what I'm recommending here is that we use 7.8 of that to to help finance these non-bonded projects and look to financing the balance of the $42 million through a lease revenue bond. We've spent time with the banking community, we've spent time with our financial advisor, Stiefel, and with our bond counsel, and have looked at multiple scenarios: lease revenue bonds, real property leases, straight up construction loans from the bank. So we've gone through all of that. And knowing that the priority is to keep the financing cost down as much as possible, and also the expectation is that we finance this through existing revenues of the district. We want to keep that principal and interest payment down as low as possible. To accomplish that, a lease revenue bond is the most effective way. That'll have us the lowest interest rate, and will also provide us the term that we need to keep that payment down and within a budget that we can manage. Right now, we're looking at interest that could be in the 3% range right now. We're on the wrong side of the interest curve right now. It's going up. The Fed's meeting today and tomorrow to determine if they're going to increase rates as well to try to slow down the impact of inflation. So our timing is what it is, and we will try to lock in the best rate we can. If we do a 20-year proposition, we're looking at a principal and interest payment that's going to be in the $2.8 million to a little over $3 million range. So those are dollars that we'll need to identify out of the ongoing budget right now to manage. So that's rock number 2. What we're most likely looking at is that we would house all of this on the capital fund, manage the revenues that we have in the capital fund to make this payment. That's where that extra $1 million from the legislature is helpful on the capital side, because we can help bridge ourselves into that financing and take care of the scheduled scheduled maintenance that we have. So instead of losing that dollar to a principal and interest payment, we have some monies that will take care of needs during this cycle of the budget. But it's going to be a challenge. Our capital budget will probably be tight this year and probably next year as we move forward. But we are capturing growth on the capital levy, so that's helpful as we move forward. But I think there's a pathway where we can manage moving forward. So that's kind of the budget situation right now. So I guess I haven't asked, and the ask is to get administrative direction to go ahead and begin the lease revenue bond process. What that entails is that the building authority would be called into a meeting to address a resolution to finance somewhere in that $42, $43 million range. That resolution would then come to you as the the school board, to commit to a revenue lease arrangement in order to pay down that bond that would be issued by the building authority. So that's way high level, but you are existing as 2 entities at this time, and so the building authority will begin its work. Because we're trying to stay ahead of the interest rate increases, we'll most likely ask that building authority to meet in the next couple of weeks or so. It'll take us a little bit of time to get the resolution put together, so that it'll be not a regularly scheduled board meeting, but we'll have a board meeting to get that work done.
Yes.
Any questions on that, or any directions that you would give me otherwise?
No, thank you.
Nope.
Thank you. Sounds good.
All right, so that's where we are in the budget for right now. Unless there's some other things that you want to bring to our attention as we go through prioritizing. Again, we've heard comments here from PCEA and others about equity, inclusion, and different approaches on how we can address that in the school
Can you
district.
look at both, could you budget out both what an officer would look like?
Sure.
That would be
Oversee.
not the CAO
Yeah, a
as
separate
well, but a
individual.
separate individual.
Uh-huh.
And then what it looks like with CAO, and then
Gotcha.
2 individuals under that. And then an ELL coordinator, I think that was an ask, or that was something that had come
The
up in
need
our
within-
discussions
sure.
about needs for
And as a
working
separate
for
individual
the-
or folded into another position?
Oh, well,
or
I
how are
would
you-
go with Dr. Gilday's recommendation
Okay.
on that, but just
Yep.
what that might look like. I would just like to see those numbers. what it would look
Perfect, yeah,
like.
we can put that together.
Thanks.
Any other things that are coming to your attention that we should make sure are on the priority list?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I think that's it for that. Am I still,
I feel like this is still,
This is your fun.
this is your show.
Yeah.
what's next on the agenda?
I have school fees.
School fees, all right. So I don't have,
School fees and legislative updates.
you know, he's cut me short.
Excuse
All right. I'm already chasing people out of the room.
So excited.
All right, so the final school fee schedule is out. Since our last meeting, I have not had any members of the public come forward and ask questions or clarify information of that nature. I did have meetings with Lindsay Huntsman on CTE and with Jamie Sheets to make sure that we have all of the fees accounted for. And what you will see is that in the CTE area, there were a number of certificates right down through here that we had failed to include. And so if you compare last time to this time, you'll see that these certification fees are in there. And they comply with the principles that you had given us a few years back on what is to be on the fee schedule, what is not to be on the fee schedule with regards to curricular fees. And so this is in compliance with that direction. And so just wanted you to see that those are the fees that are out there. I think we're going to get into an interesting chapter this next school year, probably down the line as we look at CTE. One of the service providers, MTech, has pretty significant costs to their programs. And I think that we'll set up a conversation with the board down the line to talk about where should those costs be carried. Is that a district responsibility or is that a family responsibility? And if so, how do we work that out? But at this point, the certificate fees will be the responsibility of the student or the family, and the rest of those costs to attend those classes will be borne by the district at this time. And that may be just fine, but we want to firm that up because it's different than what we had looked at 4 or 5 years ago when we got rid of school fees in the first place. So we'll just want to check in on that policy. With that, I am open to any questions that you guys might have.
So I think I recall that you said that the legislature might have some input on this year. I was just curious if that ever.
You bet, yeah. So House Bill 211 was designed to eliminate curricular fees. However, it went through several revisions. It became a second substitute, and they kept adding back in these types of fees that you guys already have on your fee schedule, that actually is a responsibility of a student or a family and shouldn't be borne by the state. So it's kind of interesting to see where they started and how they're starting to match up with how the Park City School Board is already managing fees. So kind of reinforcing that maybe we're doing something that's working. And however, the funding for it did not catch up with the language. So you had a bill that had the right ideas in it, but the legislature as a whole was unwilling to put the financing behind it. So it failed. So we're right back to where we've been, and we'll just keep moving on with school fees.
Does anybody else have any questions?
No, thanks.
So legislative updates.
I can get long in the tooth on this one. How late do you want to stay? I will go fast. And I'll skip a few.
We got people on the
You
clock.
can read it. I know. I can feel it already. It's,
Oh my gosh.
oh, no. So House Bill 11, student eligibility and interscholastic activities. This is legislation that addressed the transgender participation in athletic programs. And the bill passed. It's an interesting structure in that there is actually a ban on transgender girls participating in girls' sports. So that's the face of the bill. It has a provision that should that be contested in the courts, that there would be a stay, and that a commission would then come into place and make determinations on a case-by-case basis on those individuals as to whether they could compete or not. So that's the structure that's in place. That's what will go before the governor. The governor has already signaled that he will be vetoing the bill. So we'll be right back to where things are today, which in some people's mind is not necessarily a better place to return to, but that's the situation happening there. It also does not protect school districts from administering the law and being sued. That was a provision that was in it all the way until the last second, and that was struck out. So as we administer this, we actually carry now a liability in administering this properly. House Bill 21, it gets better.
Wow, I don't know about that.
I had to start with a strong one. So House Bill 21 is water testing requirements. So we are now required to test all of our consumable taps and make sure that we do not have certain levels of lead in the water. And with that, the funding to do all the tests, because the tests run between $70 and $100 a faucet. They're using ESSER monies that came to the state. So DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, has those dollars, and so we can submit for reimbursement for the tests that we need to perform. And if it turns out that there's money left over, that money can be used to address any failed systems. So if you need to redo plumbing or what have you, that's available there. So Todd Hansen and team will be busy working on that. House Bill 22, Open and Public Meetings Act. We've experienced this for the last couple of years with COVID, that we have electronic versions of our meetings. This addresses some challenges that had come up with regards to voting. So you had members who were not participating electronically, and so they were asking for proxy votes. So they would, you couldn't make it, you would ask Wendy to vote for you, which is not a normal procedure. And in the electronic environment, it made it really confusing. So they clarified how that works. So if you're going to do that, you have to have a resolution in place that directs how that proxy vote happens. Also, if you are holding votes in that electronic environment, if you don't have a unanimous vote, then everybody's vote has to be a voice vote. So as you pass different motions, you would actually go down the line and ask, like we do for closed session, you would ask each person by name and they would indicate their vote. So that's to address some challenges that have come up in the electronic environment. House Bills 13 and Senate Bill 134 have to do with special education funding. There were some districts that had challenges in administering special education, state, in particular state special education funding. And so statute was modified to help make those funds available in some different ways than they have been in the past. The first is that you can use these dollars for facility construction costs. Again, you have to have a special education student benefiting directly by that need. The downside to that one is there's a federal maintenance of effort. So if you spend dollars, you have to then spend at that level every year thereafter. So it's kind of tricky to have a one-time project come up and then say, oh, well, next year we might not have a construction project. So we'll have to figure out how the implementation goes. But the concept is good. It's how we manage it will become the challenge for the future. It changes the weights on how the weighted pupil unit is used, and it moves forward the timing. So they used to use a 5-year averaging. Now they'll use a 4-year averaging, but the years are closer to the actual year. The concern here being that special education was being funded behind the actual students in school, and that the money wasn't sufficient for the needs of those students. So they're making it more responsive to the current period.
Can I ask you, what's like an example of that third requires where you could get incidental benefit to students without disability?
So this is Senator Bramble's bill. What a couple of LEAs had brought forward was that the state regulations on how to use funding did not comport directly with federal guidance on the use of federal education dollars. And that discord caused confusion at schools. So you had schools providing incidental benefit to students, and the state regulators were coming down and saying, oh, you have to stop. or you have to pay those dollars back because they have been used inappropriately. And they would say, wait. In the federal regs, it says I can do this as long as it's an incidental benefit to non-special education students. And the state said, no, that's not what you can use. So this was a reconciliation to bring the state regs in conformity with the federal regs, and thereby alleviate some of that challenge that was happening. House Bill 162, period products in schools. So there was a private group that had raised the money sufficient to pay for the dispensers and a year's worth of product for bathrooms at all of the schools, which is great. That gets us into a good situation there. However, long term, it becomes the responsibility of the school district to maintain the dispensers as well as maintaining the supplies for those bathrooms. So we'll have a cost in the 2024 year that we'll be adding in order to make sure that program continues. House Bill 251, dropout prevention. This addressed a particular issue in the state where a school district was using a third party to help manage the dropout program and contacting and things like that. It makes that now legal as a process. House Bill 270, parent access to school data comparison. The State Board of Education is now required to provide on a website comparison of one school to another on how well they're performing as a school, so that parents can make determinations as to how well schools are or maybe where they want to live because of the performance of particular schools. I'll skip over that one.
I know there's quite a few in here.
Yeah,
And I know we have them.
I'm trying to find the biggies. House Bill 374 turned into a biggie. So there were 3 different school districts who have been in one form or another of a legal contest over materials in the school library. And the process by which they tried to remove those materials that they felt were sensitive materials. And it caused trouble. Some had felt that the particular materials that were identified were from minority authors, and so that this was just a backdoor way of getting rid of diversity in the schools. And so this bill defines what sensitive materials are, and as a school goes through the process of reviewing the materials already in the school, it requires that parents of the community be part of that process in determining whether those materials should be removed from the school. You'll love this one, House Bill 380. Open enrollment just moved forward 2 weeks. I have no idea how I will tell you what the status is of schools, because by the time you have to have this decision made, I don't even have the numbers from October 1 counts. So we will have fun.
So nothing else changed?
No, I just moved it forward 2 weeks so that parents are notified earlier in the year.
Okay.
But our ability to actually do the calculations are crimped. So it may be that the practical answer will be that we will accept applications, and a determination of whether schools open or closed will happen thereafter, and then we can just inform them that, thanks for the application, but we won't be accepting your application or what have you. It just, you gotta love people that don't figure out the real timing of life. This one has a lot of attention, House Bill 386 and Senate Bill 191. This provides a pathway for educators to recommend innovative programs within the school district and puts the school board in the driver's seat to determine whether those innovation programs should be implemented within a school district. The Senate Bill 191 actually makes money available, so the 386 was, if you have a great idea, let's talk about it. We don't know how we're going to pay for it, but it could be a great idea, and it maybe finds its way into a budget request or something like that. Senate Bill 191 takes the formulary restricted programs of the state and says you can use up to 35% of that money for an innovation project. So it makes money available sooner than just waiting for a budgetary cycle. So it's kind of an interesting
Is
concept.
it additional money or?
No, it's money we already have, so you have to seek a waiver from the state board to say, we want to implement this innovative idea, and we're going to take money from one of our formulary restricted programs. And there's only a handful of those, so it's like special education, it's students at risk, it's CTE, and it's class size reduction. So you're essentially taking money out of one of those programs and putting it into an initiative under a waiver. So it's kind of hard to say, oh, we didn't need that special ed dollar, but those will be the debates that we gotta have down the line on different value propositions. So this one, many teachers are interested in. This is House Bill 396, which is paid professional hours. The legislature made money available, about $64 million over 2 years now, to pay up to 32 hours of professional time. Now, professional time is defined in the statute, but there are some opportunities for teachers to really take a look at how they're doing things and improving what they're doing. And it's self-directed, so it's their determination. It's not a school administrator or a district telling them how to use these hours. It's that self-directed. We'll have to wait for the state board to determine the distribution to know how much money is in play and how many hours are actually funded, but it's there and there's interest in it.
Was there any bonus structure that came out for staff due to the pandemic or anything?
So there was in Senate Bill, I want to say it's in Senate Bill 2 maybe, or House Bill 3, I forget now. So there was $10 million set aside for compensating teachers who used their prep time to cover COVID absences at their schools. So not all school districts throughout the state have compensated teachers as they use their prep time to cover absences due to COVID. That wasn't our experience, but that's something that had come to the legislators' attention. So they will be making that $10 million distribution. We'll have to wait for the formulas. But that was a bonus, if you will, or at least compensation for having given up prep time. Bring this one up just to get people's blood boiled. So this is House Bill 462 and Senate Bill 140. And you look at it and you say, Todd, what does this have to do with anything? It's housing affordability and it's a housing and transit zone. Well, oddly enough, at the end of a Utah housing affordability bill, in the very last, like on page 340, there's a change to the housing and transit reinvestment zone. So what that is or what it was principally designed to do is along the front runner corridor down the valley, there was a desire to encourage housing development along transit hubs. And so they create this reinvestment zone, which is basically a tax increment financing tool. So as a zone is identified and development happens and it increases the value of the properties in that area, the taxes associated with that increased value go in to support the cost of putting that development together or financing any bonding that happens with the development. Oddly enough, we're not on the front runner corridor, but when the bill was passed last year, they described the Kimball Junction statutorily, not by name, but by different features. And so the Kimball Junction became part of that bill. This, the change that happens here is that it now requires the county to put together an HTRZ zone proposal to the Governor's Office of Economic Development by December of this year. And so what the impact of that is that we will be technically required to participate in tax increment financing for development in our area.
So we have to use tax dollars for education to fund Dakota Pacific to build their stupid thing at the junction.
So that is the potential outcome. What we are
So we're gonna rob the children of education so Dakota
Dollars.
Pacific can make money. Is that basically what
That
we're
would
doing?
be
That's awesome.
conceptually the idea.
That's great.
And so there's no one happy about this. You know, the county's upset because they had fended off the HTRC for a whole year, and now they're in this situation where they have to look at the legality of what's presented to them and determine what they need to do. The interesting thing is that the council or the committee that's created to receive these proposals are heavily weighted on the state membership level. So it's the Senate President, and it's the Speaker of the House, and it's the Governor's Economic Development Director, and it's the Director of Transportation. It's all these state people, and then there's a few locals thrown in. And the Senate Bill 140 I've thrown on there because that membership changed. Before, we had at least 2 votes out of 11 on adopting a proposal. We had the state board and the local board. Well, the state board was removed and replaced with the Director of Transportation. So now we only have 1 of 11 votes on the committee. So it's very weighted very heavily against those who have dollars that would be in consideration. And it also requires every entity to participate at the same level. So we could have negotiated and said, hey, you know, we're willing to be part of this, but only at 25% or 50% or 10%. You can't do that now. We're all together at the same level. So hands really become tied, and it comes down to the proposition itself and whether we can defend ourselves through a group who are not necessarily education minded. All right, got the temperature.
Is that where you're ending us? I'm like,
Okay.
It's,
Thanks for leaving on that note.
yeah, maybe I should just stop right
I
there.
know,
Is there a cheery one?
This gave us $1 million, this bill right
Right.
here. all by
Okay,
itself.
we'll take that.
$1 million, $1 million
Yes.
for capital.
All right.
And then Senate Bill 127 is early literacy outcomes.
So the really interesting thing about this one is I always love when the bill sounds, so it sounds great. You know, we all want to improve early literacy outcomes for our students in kindergarten through 3rd grade. We can all get behind that. That's, of course, public education goal. But it's designed to fund a certain training specifically that's been determined not by the local districts, but by the state. So the
So we have to adopt that training.
So we have to adopt that training, and it is about, it will take the totality of the K-3 teachers' time for probably a 2-year period. It's about 80 to 100 hours of what's called LTRS training. So it's a balanced literacy model, but it's definitely, Utah is the first state I've been in where there are actually laws that support certain programs or certain software or certain publishers or certain training. So anyway, all teachers will be required to do this. It will likely take an adjustment to my staffing proposal in an upcoming budget because we will need to make sure that everybody.
Can we refuse the funding?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. We can?
No, they've really just allocated state dollars to go to, this particular letters, LRS program. So it's owned by Lexia now. I don't know who originally developed letters. But again, it's balanced literacy training. The training in and of itself, the science of reading is good, but it's just an interesting way to do it, kind of similar to that college readiness app or whatever. They want certain programs, apparently. So there's consistency. But it's definitely a statewide rollout of a specific model of literacy instruction.
So do we get to end on that note now?
Yeah, that was it's just interesting, right? So it will take, though, a lot of
Yeah, we can end on that one.
teacher time.
Education.
Okay.
So this is good. It's just,
Which is what we're
we
kind
need
of.
to incorporate this into our core curriculum and make sure that we're taking care of it.
I don't know if that one's a set curriculum or not,
I
though.
was just gonna ask.
Yeah, is that one?
I don't know that one. Yeah, I think
Okay.
we'll have to go deeper into the
Yeah.
bill to see if it's a certain.
Well, the state has to develop it, so it doesn't exist.
Okay, so what will be what? Okay.
So it'll be close to what some of Clusting's work has been with the task force as well, so they'll be informed of each other. All right, and I'll leave it at that.
All right. well,
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Perfect. We will move to public comment for school fees. State Board requires the Board of Education to review preliminary fee items and provide an opportunity for public comment. This is the public opportunity for feedback with no discussions to be made, decisions to be made at this board meeting.
Oh, no, yeah, this one we will make the.
Yeah, but I was like, we are making a
Yeah,
decision.
we
It's
are
next.
today.
Do we have anybody here for public comment for school fees? Perfect. So then I will move on to the decision. Can I please get a motion to approve the final fee schedule for the 23 year?
I make a motion to approve the fee schedule as stated.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right, we will move on to policies for posting. I'm going to motion to post policy 9021, work-based learning, proposed changes.
I make a motion post policy 9021 as stated.
Any discussions on this one?
I just have a question. Basically, the whole thing is struck out and rewritten. Is that, is this coming, why is it so modified?
Have to look at
It's a
it.
whole new one. I don't think there's a word on there that's from the old.
That's from the old, and it could just be that
Careful supervision.
Exactly.
That's still the same.
Yeah. Well, actually, I take that back. There are a few words. But where's this, is this just something that we need to update? Is it outdated, or is it a state that we need to adopt?
typically when the state or the federal government makes an update, we end up having to go through our policy revision process if it's something that has changed in its entirety or because of a review outside of our organization. They bring back the suggestions, but some of these are just new. Like you said, some of these are just new policies, like the school fee policy. Oh my goodness, that one is like 23 pages. Or
Trying to
plus.
trim it down.
I know you're trying to trim it down, but that one is huge.
So the strikeouts in the red is just because
the
we're
strikeout
now
red
modifying
is-
and adhering to new standards. Okay, that's my only question.
Yeah, and some of it is so some of these are actually state-defined,
Yeah.
regulated, like a certain title. Like teacher leadership is actually statutory in Utah. Internship coordinator is actually a statutory title. We don't make it up locally. And so we just work to align our policy so that if someone at the state is talking about the internship coordinator, we have the same language, so that when we're at a state meeting, you know, we don't say, well, we call it teacher leader here, right? We call it the same things. So some of it, like career internship, is now called work-based learning, and that just aligns with what the Perkins grants and CTE programs are now calling things, WBL. So we're in on the lingo.
Got it.
We're in on the lingo. College career readiness has always, has been kind of a, college career life readiness is what I like to say. I'll get on some legislative committee and make that, add that L someday. But again, these things are just to update to it could be a Department of Labor update. It could be, that there's usually a reason, and it's usually an alignment reason with the State Department.
Perfect, thank you. Perfect.
So all in favor of posting?
Aye.
Aye. Right, we'll move on to policies for adoption. Policy 3100, sexual harassment, under 9. Policy 7026, criminal history record information. Policy 77, paid leave for maternity and paternity. Policy 9025, wellness policy. Policy 10010, student enrollment. Policy 11010, facilities rental. Policy 11000, FERPA.
I make a motion to post the policies as stated.
No, to adopt.
To adopt
To
as stated.
Second.
Any discussion?
Do we need feedback?
Oh yeah, do we have any, have we gotten any feedback on these ones? Nothing.
Okay.
Any discussions? So all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. We did public comment, so we are on. We will adjourn until our next regular session minute on Tuesday, April 19th at 4 p.m. unless we, that's it. Perfect. All right.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Mike, you got a question?
19.
What's the 19th?
You
guys all have this.
We're gonna go over that coalition. I'm on the subcommittee of the policy review. Like even in the name, some of the names we already have, it says non-discrimination policy, like they're just completely off. Do we just submit, what would be the best way for us to just resubmit to you or? Okay. And then open it up for comment and adoption. Because if any of them that are done based on statewide policy or something, then I don't want to screw that.
Yeah, those are usually just straightforward. It's good to understand why the maybe.
Here, or there, or there. I hear you.
It's still too late. I might be able to just do it for a week. You know, it might take us a month. It's not that big of a